Hey everybody, Mike Catalana with you here on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment. We ask for it. We appreciate it. We appreciate all the response we've gotten so far. And you know we're going to load you up with Bills content as we get set for what should be a spectacular year from this team. Certainly a lot of interest out there. All right, so they have preseason game number 2 coming up, and I'm going to be talking about that with you. Coming up with 5 players that I'm going to have my eye on. I want to see for different reasons as we get set to see what happens in preseason game number 2. So let's get it started. And in between each player, I've got a question for you, and I want to see your responses and your answers. Just put them in the comments. Different things, a little fun for the game itself, which I know you guys will be watching. Come on, number 1 is a pretty obvious one for a couple of reasons, because they're playing the game in Chicago, and Mitch Trubisky is starting. I mean, how perfect is that? Well, it's perfect in one case. I am fully on board with Sean McDermott sitting Josh Allen. I don't want to see him play in these games. Too many variables out there. We can say all you want about getting rust off. Forget about that. You want Josh healthy. Steelers game coming up. He will be ready for that game. But let's start with Trubisky. Yes, he did start that first game, but come on, he handed off through a couple of passes. They really didn't give him a chance to do a lot. Now he's playing the Bears. And look, it's a preseason game. I get it. And I get it. Chicago fans are going to boo him because, you know, he did not turn out to be the guy. He didn't turn out to be the guy for Chicago. They drafted him number 2. I was at that draft in Philly. It was the year the Bills made their trade. Mahomes went to Kansas City, and the Bills ended up getting Trey White, as you know, and then eventually made all their other moves. But that draft, when they made that move up to get Trubisky, I think people were stunned. Of course, I think John Fox, the head coach, was stunned too, which also gives you an idea how it went for Mitch. Look, he had a lot of issues in Chicago, but I've mentioned it before. The guy put up numbers. I mean, in his career, he has not been good enough. So no Bears fans tell me that I said he was good enough. He wasn't. But in terms of numbers, he started more games than Josh Allen. Of course, he's had one more year. He's won more games than Josh Allen, and he's made the playoffs twice. But the big difference is he did not progress like Josh Allen did. So they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. Now he's with the Bills. And contrary to what you might have seen nationally, because I was at the news conference, he hasn't badmouthed the Bears at all. I mean, he's talked about how much he's enjoying himself in Buffalo, and he has. And in part, that's because a lot of the pressure is off. I mean, you go from being the franchise guy to being Josh Allen's backup. That part of the pressure is off. So, yeah, he's enjoying football more because he doesn't have that. He's not making the big money from the Bills. He's settling into this role, at least for this year, as the backup. So we didn't get to see a lot in the first game. I want to see what he does. I want to see him throw the ball in this game. You know, we don't expect to see starters, or at least a lot of starters on the field. So it'll be different than normal, but we want to see what Trubisky can do. He's looked pretty good at camp. He has a good arm, not a great arm. He certainly moves well. He's a big guy, but he's not as, again, he's not Josh Allen. Not as big, not as fast, not as big an arm, not as athletic, but he is all those things, right? There was a reason he got drafted high. I mean, his intangibles coming out of North Carolina and his abilities are pretty obvious when you watch him. But there's a big jump between being that guy and being the franchise quarterback. So it didn't work. Could it work someday for him? Yeah. But right now, he's the backup for the Bills, and I want to see what he does against that Bears defense on the road, when, again, I think the crowd will be into it a little bit, and I think that's a great thing. I don't want to see him deliver the ball. They ran the ball so much in that first game. It was, ground and pound, which is not what this team is going to be. But that's what they did in the first game, and, especially when he was in there. So, he's downplayed this coming back to Chicago, which I get, but I think he's going to be excited about it. I think Friday, today, when I'm recording this, is his birthday. Not that that really matters, but he's still a young guy going back to where he was before and getting the start. So that's good. Now, I said I'm going to ask a question between each one of these players. So my question is going to be, Josh Allen on the sidelines. 1, will he wear the bucket hat, which appeared to be a big hit? And 2, do you like the bucket hat? Go ahead and comment on it. Tell me what you think. Or does he go with something else? Josh has a look he goes for sometimes. Doesn't always try to be the coolest guy in the room. Tries to be Josh Allen. Bucket hat. You know who wears the bucket hat? In some form, it's his coach. But more importantly, his owner wears a bucket hat. Josh, I think, has made the bucket hat cool. So does he wear it? Do you like it? And if he's wearing it on the sidelines, you're going to see lots of shots of that for him. So he's the first guy. The second guy I want to see is Dion Dawkins. Dion's going to be on the field, which I think is great, from what we saw when I was at practice and he walked on the field the first time and you're like, wow, this guy doesn't look right. And then we heard his not spectacular is the wrong word, fascinating story about dealing with COVID. And I know a lot of you are tired of hearing about COVID. This isn't about COVID. This is about your guy, Dion Dawkins, and what this guy went through in the offseason. So put your politics aside, one side or the other, and just think about this man and what he was going through. And, every doctor out there, and I'm not talking about the ones that actually went to med school, has an idea of where it came from, should have gotten the shot, not gotten the shot. The thing is, he got COVID and he was really sick and he worried about his life. I mean, don't look at me and think I'm overstating this. This is what he said when he was talking to us because he was having trouble breathing. So he's gotten himself on the field, which I think is great, and he's been tired. And I think McDermott wants to see what he is physically going out there, how far away. And they're not going to give him a bunch of snaps. They want to see him go through warm-ups, get himself ready. Maybe, 8 or 10 snaps out there. And I think it's important for him. I think he needs that. So I'm really interested in seeing Dion because he is a vital player on this team. And they're going to make sure he's right before he's out there. But we always worry about what's behind him, right? Would they go with the rookie Brown? I know he's 11 feet tall, but are you trusting him with the blind side with Josh Allen? So let's see how Dion looks. And speaking of McDermott, this is what I want to ask. I think he's already in midseason clapping form. He did it in the preseason. Now, for this game, when you're watching on TV, when we first see him, once the game is started with the clapping, is it after a positive or negative play for the Bills? Because he brings out both. Sometimes it's just flat out McDermott enthusiasm. Sometimes it's after a mistake, a problem, lose the ball, fumble, and he's getting them going. Other times it's after something good, maybe a good hit, maybe a big run, whatever it is. So the first time, once the game starts, that we get the clapper, I want to know what you think of what circumstances will it be? So that's our second question. Third guy I want to see is Marquez Stevenson. Now, you saw him in the last game make the catch. The guy's got speed. He has great speed, and that's why they drafted him in the 6th round. But I believe this, at this point in camp, maybe even earlier, they've made their mind up about players. And when I say that, I don't mean they've made their mind up 100%. Who's on the 53, who they want on the practice squad. I'm talking about they make up their mind. Do they want this player as part of the organization? Because sometimes that mind is made up. And a guy could make 2 plays in the final preseason game and everybody thinks he's on the team. Well, they had a bunch of snaps of the guy. They didn't see what they wanted. And then people will be like, well, they'll definitely bring him back on the practice squad. Then he doesn't come back. Now, I'm not saying this about Marquez Stevenson because I think he's done that. I think his speed alone, being a draft pick, I think is what keeps him on this roster. The question is, can he find his way actually, on the 53 or 55, an inactive guy early in the year? We don't know what's going on. I know a lot of fans have said to me, Stephon Diggs will be fine. I'm talking about the start of the year. If he's not ready, they're going to activate another wide receiver. It does open up a spot for the possibility of a guy like Stevenson being out there. I don't know if they would do that. They might activate another position, maybe somebody that helps in another way. And I'm not saying that Stephon Diggs isn't going to be ready. I'm saying he hasn't been on the field in a week and a half. So that's a big deal. So you got Stevenson, you got a guy like Lance Lenoir who's been in the league a little bit. Does that give him a little bit of an edge? Seeing Stevenson, I think he's on the roster. The question is, again, teams think about this. Can we cut him and bring him back on the practice squad? I know fans fear that a lot, but keep in mind, when they make these final cuts, there's 1,000 players out there. Not every team is ready to pick up the guy that you think looked great in the preseason. So I want to see how he looks. I want to see if he gets a little more time. He did make a big play, the one big play from Jake Fromm, and it helped win the game. That's great. And I think he's looked pretty good at practice. But that's just my opinion, seeing him in a certain way. The coaches see everything. So I want to see how he looks in this game. And while I'm speaking of wide receivers, a lot of attention's been made to touchdown Jesus's hair. I want to know about Cole Beasley's hair for this game. Is it up? Is it down? Because I don't know if he's going to play. I think he's going to be standing on the sidelines. And I think Beasley's been inspired a little bit by Jake Kummerow. Saw him at practice the other day. Looks like he just got out of the shower, coming down the field, letting it go long. Sometimes he's got it in the bun. I want to know what you think. What kind of hair? And while we're at it, Jake likes the flow going. Every once in a while, he puts the bun up. But we're going to go with Cole Beasley because I think you're going to see him on the sidelines standing there. Wouldn't mind seeing Beasley go bucket hat, maybe to join Josh Allen. They're buddies. But I want to know about the hair because, there's things to watch because, let's be honest, it still is a preseason game. Player number 4, A.J. Epenesa. I want to see some splash plays, ice splash play out of him. We saw from Greg Rousseau right away. AJ didn't have that last year as the first pick, even though he's a second rounder. I think he's looked good. I think he's shown an ability to put on pressure at camp. I want to see it in a game circumstance. I want to see a tackle for loss. He did have a couple of those flashes last year when he was playing. He's come back a little different physically. But the pressure is on AJ. He's going to be on the roster. But the pressure is on him. They've drafted 2 other guys at his position. They still have the veteran guys. I'm talking about for being in that regular rotation and getting the snaps because, Rousseau's looked good and they drafted right over him. Now, maybe they're, and then they drafted Basham. You guys know all of this. But I want to see AJ in the game. I think I saw a piece that the Bills did on the defensive line, and it was kind of interesting to see. I think AJ was a quieter guy last year. I think he's coming out of his shell, at least publicly, that way. I think that'll help him. And I think the coaches like him, but I think they want to see a little bit more. And I think this would be a game to see that. So how about AJ Epenesa coming from the side, making a big hit on the quarterback, knocking a ball loose, getting a sack, something like that. While I'm sticking with defense, I'm going to go to a coach. Now, you guys know that Leslie Frazier was a player in this league and played for the Bears. Now, I used to be on the preseason broadcast for 20 years. I'm not anymore. If I was, I would have some insight into this. I might even been the guy doing it. But will they show Leslie as a Bear? And if they do, will they show him dancing in the Super Bowl Shuffle video? It is phenomenal if you see it. You guys know Leslie's personality. Pretty laid back, cool, calm, measured. It's kind of the way he was dancing. And look, I'm no dancer, but I'm also not a guy who was recorded dancing in a video. But he's in there with the Fridge and McMahon and Peyton and those guys. So if you haven't seen it, you're on YouTube. Go find it. You see the video. He's not in there very long. He's in there a couple of flashes, but Leslie Frazier. So do they put that in the broadcast on Saturday afternoon when they're talking about the Bills and the Bears? And the 5th guy I want to see is Josh Thomas. You saw him flash a little bit. This guy was on the roster practice squad last year. Made some plays, made a play in the game. I thought the secondary in total was very aggressive. Those guys are out there. And obviously they weren't playing, Hyde and Poyer. So he got his opportunity. So let's see what he does with it. They drafted DeMar Hamlin. Obviously they like him. But again, when we're talking about where they are with these players, they've kept a ton of their draft picks over the years. But it's getting harder and harder for all the draft picks to be on the roster one place or another. The spots go away. I'm not saying Hamlin's going somewhere. I'm saying they're going to look at the guy who's going to help them maybe now on that roster and be ready. And, Thomas has a year in the system, mostly on the practice squad, made some splash plays. We're talking about being that 4th safety. It doesn't mean that, Hamlin wouldn't be on the roster either. There's special team roles for these guys. That's what they do. But I'm interested to see in how he plays and if he can keep that up. Obviously, the Bills 1-2 at safety is as good as it gets in this league. But you need depth. You need guys who can make plays on special teams. And I think Thomas has shown that. And now in this role, getting a bunch of snaps, what will we see? And for my last question, okay, I know it's the preseason, but do they win? I mean, they found a way to come back and win. I say this all the time. It does not matter, certainly in the big picture, whether you win or lose these preseason games at all. And they won the last one, nice little comeback, but at the end of the game, it's a bunch of guys playing that are fighting for spots. I tell you this all the time. The preseason, the regular season is about the team. The preseason is about the individuals, and it's about evaluation. But being around these games, being on those planes coming back all that time, it's a little better when you win the game. Guys can be excited a little bit more, especially when a guy makes a play like Stevenson did last week. Jake Fromm got a chance to make a play. So do you think they do, and what kind of game do we see? Go ahead. Make your pick on what you think, and what the heck. I'll say the Bills find a way to win this game because Trubisky wants to beat the Bears. And obviously the Bears got all their own stuff going on, you know, with Andy Dalton and the top draft pick, and the national media has already dubbed that, you know, he's going to be the starter, and maybe he will be, and maybe he'll play a ton, and maybe he'll look great against the Bills. But let's see what happens in this game, and let's see if, you know, see what Trubisky can do. Plenty of content here on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. Go ahead and check it out. You know, all the news, the main news conferences, our own takes on what's going on at practice, and Dan Fates and Matt Bove from the ABC affiliate in Buffalo with their own takes on what's going on at camp so far. We're sort of transitioning now past camp mode into sort of getting into regular season mode, at least up there. So things are starting to shift more towards pointing to that first game in the regular season. So again, subscribe, like, and make sure you comment. I want the answers to all those questions, and let me know what you think about the Bills coming up with their game with the Bears. And comment, you know, so that we can respond to you too, because we like to do that too. For Jenna Cottrell and for Dan Fates, our entire team here on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel, I'm Mike Catalana. Thanks for watching here on Buffalo Plus.